What is the worst thing you've ever done for money? I think I've told this story before and I'm late to the party. When I was a teenager, a man offered me $100 to pee in his coffee cup at a 24 coffee house I hung out at. I did it and then he looked me directly in the eyes as he drank it. This happened several times. To a 15-year-old, having someone pay you to pee and then drink it seemed awesome, and it was. Then I got older and learned it was a fetish, and for some reason, it shocked me. I don't regret it though. I have stolen/taken over the lives of 2 people for 15 years and counting, using their money to support myself. This heist began at birth. In high school, my buddy and I become the art club's president and treasurer, respectively. We were broke, so we robbed the club for gas money and beer. We found free things the club could do, so it's not like we stole the cash and screwed them over. We also set up a fake field trip, collected the cash buy-in from everyone, and threw a giant party. The whole club was in on it. Their parents pitched in $50 a person and we had a raging kegger. The parents believed we were heading up north for a one-night camping trip so we could work on our still life paintings. Instead, we drank ourselves silly and smoked a ton of weed. There was plenty of cash left over to get some convincing receipts. The art club never found out. However, one of the students ratted us out when we got back. My buddy and I got suspended for 5 days. That's actually a pretty light sentence when you think about it. Also, another friend and I threw a raging kegger when the PS2 came out. We charged everyone walking in $10. When we hit $650, we called 911 and got the party busted up. We then left and stood in line to get our free PS2s. That's probably the worst thing I've done, especially since we used some random person's house. I've sold a $100 HDMI cable before that was 3 feet long. A job is a job, but I still feel bad. Once upon a time, I had long hair, and wore skinny jeans, and was wearing a big winter jacket, and was a feminine young teenage boy. The point is that sometimes people thought I was a girl. One day, after a long day at work, I was exhausted. I sat down on the bus, 11:45 at night, and this super drunk guy sits down a few seats back, and drunkenly says, "Hey, what's up?" I nod at him. About halfway to my house, he moves into the seat right behind me and leans over. "Hey, you alright, darling?" At this point I realize he thinks I'm a girl and don't want to freak him out by talking with my obviously male voice. So I just say a meek yeah. He nods and sits back down in his own spot. About 30 seconds before my bus stop, he gets up, moves to the seat behind me, looks around quickly, and puts a $100 bill next to me. Then goes back and sits down. I look at him, utterly shocked, and he gives me this sly smile and nod, and motions me towards him. Obviously I took the money and got off the bus. I didn't actually do anything aside from look pretty, but I still felt pretty dirty. When I was about 17, some freshman girls at my school asked if I could get them any sort of pills. I told them yeah and asked what they wanted. The girls said ecstasy. I knew where to get ecstasy, but they wanted it within the next 6 hours or so. Knowing they were complete idiots, I told them it'd be $10 per pill, so they asked for 3. I got a plastic bag and put 3 vitamin C tablets in it and sold it to them. The next week, they asked me for more because they said it barely worked. I've been playing guitar since I was 9 years old, so obviously I'm quite good at it. When I was a senior in high school, I rode the metro into downtown St. Louis, dressed up in my worst clothes, and played guitar on the street corner next to the metro station. Want to know how much money an 18-year-old white kid dressed in shitty clothes playing prog rock on his acoustic guitar next to the metro station makes in a few hours? $3.14. And they told me to get a job. I thought about doing it again, but I couldn't trick people like that more than once. I paid my way through college with odd jobs and contract work. Started with little fix-its, then went into some pretty neat work where I would help people brainstorm on ways to fix their problems, Usually office-related problems, logistics, customer complaints, even building enough desktop computers with parts off Newegg to fill 2 entire floors worth of offices with higher-end computers at a fraction of the cost to buy them off the shelf. Slowly, after becoming reliable and trustworthy, a few of the companies would have me move things at weird hours, boxes and bins of records, escort people and things through rough areas and sometimes across multiple states. Sometimes I was just along to be a large quiet guy in the room conspicuously not wearing a suit. Created a throwaway for this part. But there were a few times, not many, where I was asked to find industrial construction sites that were laying a foundation, which means a thick slab of concrete not likely to go anywhere for a long time. Find them and gain quiet access to the sites the night before the concrete pouring. I did construction when I was younger, and I still knew a lot of people working these sorts of sites. So a few phone calls is all it took. While I don't have direct confirmation of the reason, the price I was paid leads me to believe that it likely involved bodies. To the op, I saw your story going a whole different direction when the manager wiggled his finger and say follow me to the freezer. I used to do homework for people / help people cheat on tests. Would bring in a few $100. I used to sell Sudafed to a guy for $60 a box. One weekend I made $600. I used to ride around with the boxes stuffed under my back seat. I felt terrible because I knew what the guy was doing with them. But when you're a full-time college student, you can really use the extra money. In middle school there were some boys going door to door selling bread. My friends and I realized they had money from selling bread. So we told them we'd kiss them for $5. I didn't do this, but it happened to me. Last year while attending college I stopped at a store one night to stock up on beer for the night. While I was walking in, a woman in a beat-up old green car called out to me and asked me to come over to her. She looked like she was on the verge of crying and gave me her sob story about how she was 20 minutes away from home and she ran out of gas but didn't have enough money to make it back. It was close to Christmas, so being the sucker I am, I handed her all of what I had in my wallet, about $8 or so. I said Merry Christmas and turned around and left. She didn't even say thank you. A little fishy. But I just shrugged it off. Fast forward a year later. I was at the same store grabbing, you guessed it, more beer for the night with some friends when the same woman in the same green car pulled up by us. She gave us the exact same story and asked for a few bucks. I told my friends that it was a scam and gave her a dirty look. On our way out I watched her giving the same sob story to a couple of other people and I yelled, "She's lying, don't listen to her." They walked away and the woman, who apparently was out of gas, sped away and gave me the harshest death stare I've even gotten. Moral of the story: if you're going to lie about being out of gas to get drug money, at least go to a different store each time. This'll get buried but I have to share it. I live in a pretty bad area. Homeless kids are everywhere, getting into fights on almost every corner. Until recently there weren't even roads or cars. People just walked. Anyway, after leaving home at 10 years old, I tried to resist the temptation to join in on these fights. They'd usually be for money. Instead I would look for stray animals and take my anger out on them. I know now how wrong that sounds. One day, though, this punk kid came up to me and started mouthing off at me. I think he was mentally disabled though, since I couldn't really make any sense of what he was saying. He just kept screaming about shorts. A crowd gathered and we fought. Surprisingly, I won. I was amazing. Since then I've never lost a fight, and just keep making more money. I've even fought preschoolers, though I'm not proud to admit it. Morally, it's hard. I need the money. But so do these people. The only thing that keeps me going, though, is the knowledge that someday I will become a Pokemon master. This will get lost in the shuffle, but when I was about 8 or 9 I found these little raffle tickets that said "Save the Rainforest." Being the young business entrepreneur I am, I started going door to door selling these raffle tickets. I gave the people a sob story on how the rainforest was being ravaged by industrialists, blah blah blah. I sold each ticket for $1. Some people bought multiple tickets. That weekend I made $500. I've taken photos of sleeping men with hard-ons. Wasn't the worst thing I've ever done though. A friend of mine has this really gross toe. We paid a female friend of ours to suck on the toe. She got about $2 for 30 seconds of toe sucking. Later we paid her to let the guy with the toe spit in her mouth. Being extremely poor and desperate, I applied to Best Buy and I got hired. I'd rather be homeless and fill my belly with roasted rat meat than work for that company. The worst 30 days of my life. Never forget. I once shaved a friend's hairy back, gathered up the hair, glued it to my face, and sang God Bless America at a local bar. All for the month's rent. Seriously. I stole $50 from a charity I was working for. I used to hold a sign outside of a Walmart in Bakersfield, CA. Traveling. Hungry and broke. Anything helps. God bless. I would make hundreds a day. At first, the sign was true. Then I was quickly making more money than I ever had in my life. Felt so wrong. Especially since I didn't believe in God. But those Christians were always the most generous and would always say God bless. So I felt bad for taking advantage of their kindness. I ate a tadpole for $1. I drank a bottle of habanero hot sauce for $5. It burned worse when I vomited it back up a few minutes later. I ate 8 or 9 packets of mustard in the lunchroom in school. For attention. Also did ketchup. I tried mayo once. And about puked. I've never tried may again. I once found an index card on the floor of the bus. I picked it up, rubbed it in the grooves on the floor, and swallowed that thing whole. $5. I lost $100 trying to drink a whole gallon of milk. I am not a clever man. I agree to do people's homework for money. But sometimes the work piles up and there are casualties. Really. If someone's left you dead in a ditch before, they'll probably do it again. Also, what the internet says about web business is correct. If it involves wiring money, the chances of shit ending shady go up tremendously. Nope. Never. I'm an honest businessman. Spreading the glory of monorails across our blessed America. My friend bet me $30 in free drinks at Oktoberfest in RVA last week if I could eat a stick of butter. I did. During high school summers, I cleaned roadside gutters of trash, dead animals, and other disgusting things in scorching 100+ temperatures for $25 an hour, 10 YRS ago. I am a 100 pounds prissy female. My precious, beloved kitty cat had just turned 2 years old. I'd had him since 8 weeks, had been sick for about 2 months. He was on a bunch of pills, wouldn't eat, and long story short ended up dying. My mother commiserated with me and offered to send me $50 to pay for funeral costs, having him incinerated and disposed of properly. I took the money, threw his plastic bag wrapped carcass into my apartment building dumpster and spent the money on methamphetamine. That was my intention from the moment my mom offered the cash. Lesson learned. Some things can never be undone. I will live with that forever.